Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monday edition of our Gen AI news briefing. I am here with the analysts at GAI Insights, and as we do for you every weekday, we are going to go through several news items and discuss and let you know whether it's one that's critical for you to key in on and read, or if you can kind of give it a pass. We have a special guest today, and actually he'll be with us all week, which is really awesome. Friend of the firm, Christopher Brock. He's got many endeavors underway, and I think one we wanted to key in on for today is he's offering an AI online classroom. He'll give you a little information about that at the end of the show today. Chris, excited to have you. Looking forward to the discussion. And hosting and moderating this week will be Tanya, so she'll be holding the final gavel on all of our decisions about the articles, and we will toss it over to her now.
Thank you, Dave. Excited to have the power. All right, so we have 7 articles we're going to review today. So we got to be a little bit quick, analysts. We're going to start with a Wall Street Journal article. We'll then hear about Coher and a new foundational model that they put out called Rerank 3. We're going to learn about the role of the Chief AI Officer. Will it continue? Do we need it long term? Then there's some interesting article about healthcare and generative AI. We've all heard how important generative AI is in that industry, but there's some fears around it. There's an article on Apple, a great article on music, the creative process, and how do we make sure that we don't infringe on copyrights. And then we will wrap up with an article from the UK on how can we ensure that we develop AI with safety in mind. So with that, let's get started. Ankush, with the Wall Street Journal article, please.
Thanks, Tanya. So the first one that we have for today is titled "The Worst Part of a Wall Street Career May Be Coming to an End," and it talks about how AI will replace entry-level white-collar work on the Wall Street.
All right. And if we can pull up the article, to be honest, I could not access this one, so I didn't get to read it. But I am sure, David, you had a chance to read it and you will illuminate us.
I did. I threw a PDF in there in our room, so if you want to read it later, you can have a chance.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to make an argument for important on this one, and I could be convinced as to essential. And here's why. So a little background on this article. Basically, the leaders at banks are saying that they could cut as much as 2/3 of their junior staff, also cut their pay, thanks to what generative AI can do. And actually, Accenture ups that number to the possibility of supplementing or replacing 3/4 of bank staff. So here's what's going on here. So in the financial industry, when you're in an entry-level job, a lot of what you do revolves around creating PowerPoints and reports that enable the senior folks to do their jobs. And AI, although I don't think it's great at replicating the ability to make a slide just yet, it's definitely getting there. And this is what the employees are spending a lot of time on. And by the way, this is what consulting firms, junior employees spend a lot of time on as well. So that's one of the reasons why I'm making this case important. It's also what junior employees do a lot in a lot of industries, right? So I think this is one for any AI leader to read, because as we'll talk about when we get to the article about chief AI officers, your job as the AI leader is not just technical, right? It's also the change management. It's considering how to roll out these tools, how to get employees to buy into them. And this just all creates a bigger question mark as to how we are going to train junior employees going forward, because a lot of this grunt work was a way for them to learn how to do their jobs, right? So that's my argument for making this one important. And like I said, I could be convinced to go to essential.
Thank you, David. Does anyone else in the team have another ranking for this?
Chris, what do you think? I thought this article was really telling, especially if you're in the finance and banking world, that going into college, you think you have a job as a junior analyst. And what this is showing is that those junior analyst jobs are going to start being automated with AI. So I think that skilling yourself up quickly on AI, if you're in college right now, in finance, looking to break into banking, you should really understand the importance that AI is going to be having on those sort of early junior analyst roles. I say that it's important to know if you're in that field. If you're not in that field, I don't think it's really a need to really read. But if you're in finance, this is something to really pay attention to.
Chris, and I'll make the case for essential only because of the fear factor, Chris. I think if you're an AI leader in any other industry, this is going around to your first line employees. We're doing a lot of work with companies. I'm seeing a 20-30% solid fear factor. And, this is real. And I think the AI leader needs to help their management team understand how real this is. We used to have a room full of people with manual typewriters that would type memos and send them around an inter-office mail to get messages. And all that is gone. And at some simplistic level, I think a lot of this work is the same thing, but it addresses the fear factor that's very real. And that's also part of the change management that David talked about.
All right. So we have 2 important and 1 essential.
You make the call, Tanya.
Yeah.
All right. We're not going to have any more fire into this.
Keep driving. You got 7 articles.
I was sort of with Chris on between optional and important, depending on which sector you were in. So I think I could go up to important, but essential for all our readers might be a bit of a stretch. It's also quite a lengthy article. So my vote's for important.
Let's go with I'm with you there. Let's go with important, and we'll make a little note saying that if you're in finance, definitely take the time to read this. All right, let's move on to article number 2, which is the new model by Coher. And Adam, kick us off with this one, please.
Ankaj,
Ankaj, if you can give the intro. Sorry.
Thanks, Nanya. So this one from Coher talks about Rerank 3. So it's a new model for search and retrieval. So basically more effective RAG for foundational models.
Thank you, Adam.
So I rated this as importance. I feel like we've seen a lot of news out of Coher over the last month or so. We saw Command R, and then just on the backs of that, Command R Plus, which were both ways to more effectively do the retrieval augmentation. And now they're looking at a way to make it even less expensive, higher performant. I think it's time we really, at a minimum, call out an important and get people to start paying attention to the potential that Coher can offer within the enterprise. You see some of the stuff there, but about 2/3 of the way down, there's a chart on this that I think really nails it. It's talking about cost versus accuracy. If you want to scroll down on Kaj, it's about a little over halfway, 2/3 of the way down the page. You got to go quite a bit. Keep going. And I'll just emphasize this. Keep going. After that, still, it's 2/3 of the way down. Keep going. Yeah, there we go. The next one. Thank you. So if you look at this here, this is the cost per 1,000 queries. And you look at Claude 3 Sonnet, Mistral Large, GPT-4 Turbo, and then in the bottom right there, meaning it's literally like 1/10 to 1/100th the cost per 1,000 queries, and it's more performant because of the way it's doing the retrieval on getting more out of your RAG systems. And the writing is certainly on the wall that retrieval augmentation is going to be part of the future here, and more the cost considerations are going to be driving that. So I think this is important to take note of.
Yeah, I'm going to second that important rating. I've had Coher at the top of my 2024 takeover target list for a while now. And while I'm not completely removing them from the top of that list, I will say I'm impressed with the way that they've begun to reposition themselves as a cost-effective solution and starting to key in on specifically the search area and others that are kind of like obviously very ripe for their particular offerings. So I also feel like this is important.
Under track. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, David. Any other ratings other than important? All right, so cost efficiency, performance improvements, enhanced search capabilities, all important things for us to be aware of with Coher. So we'll go with important on that. So let's move on to article number 3, which is the one on the AI, the Chief AI Officer.
Great. So this was one that I was tasked with. This article is really breaking us out of the idea of just having committees looking at AI, but actually focusing on having a person that's in charge and will take responsibility, that chief AI officer. They interviewed some of the normal companies that you would hear from, like an Accenture. I think they also looked at a couple other higher level consulting firms that are sort of placed first. And what they're saying is that the chief AI officer needs to be placed in organizations sort of in parallel with the CTO. Also, that chief AI officer needs to have an interdisciplinary background to understand how AI is going to impact the organization, from sales and marketing all the way to sort of value chain management, accounting, and governance. What they're finding is that it's still a new field. It's not one that all the companies have jumped on board to create a specific role called the chief AI expert or chief AI officer. So this is just a work that's pushing that is something that companies need to think about by putting someone in position to take responsibility and charge of the AI efforts, especially around generative AI.
Thank you, Chris. So important on your side, right? Did I hear you right?
Yes, it's important on my end.
Okay, thank you. John or Paul, you are meeting continuously with different executives across the nation. What are your feels around this?
John's at the.
Yeah,
John,
yeah, sure. I think it's important. I mean, I think it's one of those things. I believe it'll be a focus for a while, and then the role will go away. Interesting. I posted on my LinkedIn, and there were a bunch of people saying, "Look, this is too important to have one individual." And then there's other people who are saying, "Hey, we really need somebody who's deep, especially on security issues, to deal with these things." So I would say it's an important article and an important debate to have inside. Personally, I think you should not have a chief AI officer. What you should have is, you should think of this as an organization capability that looks more like quality. So I think you'd have somebody who's, well, let me rephrase that. You should have a chief AI officer, but you should understand that person coordinates a federated set of capabilities that are driven throughout the organization through a combination of training, self-coordination, and application, just like quality movement was. So I would say the article is important.
Yeah,
Thank you, John.
And Tanya, I agree. Important. I think I would I know a lot of companies think about this, and we're helping a few of them with their job descriptions. My view is obviously it can't be technical. I also think this is the absolute wrong title. AI is the how, and I think what's more important is the what, and the what is digital transformation. So, yes. I think what we need is centralized coordination, because it's so important, because there's now quarterly goals around Gen AI boards for digital transformation tracking and coordination. And chief AI or AI implies a technical thing here, but they clearly.
I think towards the end of the article, I think it was Tata that said that it's really it's a role that already exists as the digital transformation, and AI is just the how, like you said. All right, we'll move with important on this. I do think it's relevant for our executives to read, and I don't think it was too long of an article. All right, the next one, Ankaj, if you could please introduce, which is the one on healthcare and people not being too thrilled about generative AI in the healthcare industry.
Sure, Tanya. So this article talks about how Gen AI is making progress in the healthcare field, and how not everyone who is involved in the healthcare field is thrilled about it.
A lot of fear around this. So John, if you're in a good spot, would you like to kick us off for this one?
Sure. Yes. You're welcome to see the inside of the airplane here too, if you want. I think that this is, I put it as optional. It's, to me, it's just, there's a series, and when anything serious happens, a new set of technology and capabilities, there's a bunch of lazy, journalists who go and they find the people who either don't think the technology, they poke holes in the obvious, which is, look, it has to be correct. It has to, yes, you can't rely completely on the machine. There's people involved. This is a complex area. We're going to have, just make the litany of stuff. So this to me is a formulaic, uninformative notion that, yeah, we have to be careful and put AI in healthcare. So I would give it a super optional myself.
Mhm.
I was on the border of important, but not because of what the title of this article is whatsoever. More for the opposite reason, because it provides a nice listing of the different areas that you can use this in healthcare, and there are areas that we know that companies are actively exploring and sometimes already using. I agree with John. I mean, first of all, a lot of the discussion here is about how you would use LLMs and their performance out of the box, right? We know that fine tuning is going to improve the performance, and there is actually a nod to that in this article. So really just flagging it for a completely different reason as important.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could support that. I see what you mean, David. When I think of it, because it does talk about things like image recognition, for mammograms and for radiologic stuff, and so yeah, maybe the editors can hold in the title, and the substance is more reasonable.
Mhm.
I want to know two things. One, I think super optional category that John proposed, we should take that under advisement. I think that's come up a few times. I think also we should also recognize, for someone who's did a startup for healthcare 3 years, healthcare is the absolute wrong word. It's not healthcare, it's healthcare reimbursement. So technology has been around forever. Many of it's never gotten implemented because there's no way to get it paid for. And I think this is just another huge pile of it, particularly on the clinician side. We don't today even have an ability in most parts of America to easily get our medical lists and our appointments and our notes onto our phone like we do with Quicken and everything else here. So I think the other thing is, I think on the clickbait side, this is great clickbait. People fear it drives clicks.
I guess I see what you mean. Yeah. I was just at the Google conference last week, and Highmark Health was one of the presenters. And one of the things that I would mention, and I would make this an important article because of that, is the focus on really bringing the data together of all the not just within the organization, but across partners. And to your point, Paul, in order to optimize, the payment and just the collaboration across the different organizations. So it's not as much Gen AI as much as the data and analytics side of things, where they seem to be more focused. But yeah, we all know healthcare is a key industry that is going to be really revolutionized by this technology, especially on the optimizing operational efficiencies. All right, so we'll go with important on this one, and let's move on to the article number 5, Apple. And I guess we gotta rush a little bit because we still have 2 more after that.
So this article talks about how Apple is planning to overhaul AI-focused M4 chips.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
I
so
know
look,
Adam. Yeah.
I would consider this optional news. It's another upgrade to what's going to be offered in their various systems. They're going to have a low, a medium, and a high-end chip. But as best I can tell, they're still going to be reliant on TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, for production, even though they do the design. So the iMacs will get the low end. The MacBook Pros, Mac Studio, Mac Minis will be the mid tier, and then the Mac Pros will get the high end. But which is extraordinary. This was in another article I saw, but 25% of Taiwan Semiconductor's revenue comes from Apple. They are by far still their biggest customer, and I think that's still sort of the linchpin here. This would be important news if Apple were actually striking out on its own and sort of getting away from that dependency as a result of this. But as much as I can see, it's just more performance. It's an incremental change. I'd consider it optional news.
Mm-hmm.
And
Chris, do you have any thoughts around this?
Optional again. I was just going to say, put another check mark in the box for Apple making the news for something that they haven't actually done yet. That's all.
You know that I one time I had a layover in Iran before it, before he had the problems with Iran, and I met a guy who got his tax accountant out of jail because he said, the guy was put in jail for tax fraud, and now he knows where the line is, so that's why he hired him. He, anyway, the people who do PR for Apple, God love them. I want to hire them. I mean, they get placements for nothing.
All right. Sounds like we're heading to optional, but sorry, Chris, I think you wanted to add a comment as well.
I'm an Apple fanboy, even still, even though my laptops are never touchscreen and all these other features. I'd say it's optional for sure. I'm excited to see when Siri becomes AI. That's the news I'm waiting for. We'll see when that really happens.
All right. Optional it is. Let's move on to music. And David, with your love for music, I think I assigned this one to you.
Yes, sorry. I'm going to take my 30 seconds. Actually, this is completely optional for the AI leader, but the tool I think is quite good. I have messed around with Suno. Adam and I have been messing around with that for a bit, and I used this one, and I'm going to show you a 30-second clip of what I created in about 5 minutes. But Tanya, tell me which genre you like better, country music or kind of bubblegum pop?
Oh, I'm a jazz listener. So let's do country.
Those are your options.
Country. All right. Let's do country.
All right. We're going to go with country. Hopefully the sound comes through.
No audio.
No audio. We can't hear you, Dave, either.
All right, I quit. I checked the box to have it share the audio, but I don't think StreamYard's working that right. I will post it on our LinkedIn today. Our new theme song is what I had created.
All right. Can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much. So you're giving the article optional.
Yes.
Anyone else in the group have a different perspective?
I would say optional as well, but if you haven't tried these Gen AI music production, I call that essential, like essential fun. Go try that out. It's absolutely amazing to go from prompt to a song in seconds. It's really phenomenal, and I see why the music industry is so up in arms about AI generated content, because it's really remarkable to see how well content can be produced so quickly on the music side. So definitely check out the technology, but the article's optional.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And now we can move on to the last article for the day, which is the group in the UK. And Ankash, I'm so sorry because I've kind of passed your introduction. We love how you kind of help us ground on what the article content is. So if you don't mind giving us an intro on the program that the UK has started for implementing safety standards in AI.
Sure, Tanya. So the DARPA equivalent of UK Advanced Research and Invention Agency. So they are trying to get quantity safety guarantees for AI. So they are planning to launch a kind of a gatekeeper AI.
Good. Could you pull up the article too, please, Ankash, so we can see it? And this one.
David, I think David needs to pull that up.
Oh, okay. And then Chris, if you'd like to kick us off on this one.
Sure. So I learned a little bit about what the British R&D DARPA equivalent is in this one. ARIA, Advanced Research and Invention Agency. They are working really in like nuclear power and passenger aviation, but and how machine learning sort of impacted those fields. They have a fairly large budget to look at some qualitative scalable issues around generative AI. I don't really get the outcome that they're going for. So this is just funded research. Looks like on sort of the taxpayer's dime to see what they can invent, find, or research. I didn't really find this to be an important article for anyone to really read. I definitely mark it as optional. But it is interesting to see that there's so many research efforts now going into generative AI. after generative AI has already been launched. So it's sort of researching what that sort of black box of AI is and what type of capabilities are going to be able to meet or exceed government standards or should be avoided. So I think that's sort of what we're seeing in this article is the British DARPA's view of generative AI and what's high risk, high reward research.
Thank you, Chris. You know, what caught my attention on the article is this idea, and we've discussed it in the past, of there eventually going to be like a stamp of approval, right, for different things that we do. And I think it's kind of heading that direction. But to your point, it's still kind of research. There's nothing yet tangible. So I agree with the optional. Any other comments on that one from the team? All right. We're going to go with optional. So to wrap up our day, I don't know, Ankash, if you have the summary sheet, but I tracked that we have 4 important and 3 optionals. Not bad. All right. So a little bit of reading for today, but you know, nothing essential. So you guys can hold off if you don't have time today to those listening to us. And I think that's it. So I'm going to give it back to you, David, to close us out.
All right. Thanks, Tanya. Great job today, as always. Thank you, everybody, for watching. A reminder that our learning lab is this evening, although a fail on my part. I have no idea what it's about, but I can always tell you that they're always super valuable and we get great feedback. There's always about 100 people on these calls sharing various insights. Last week, we had Jeff Tratner. Oh, actually, that's who it is this week. I do know who it is. This week, it's Jeff Tratner. And he's actually going to show us how you can use generative AI to up your job search game. So using it for help with your resume, for finding good companies to apply for, etc. So if you're on the hunt for a job, definitely want to tune into this one. Also, as usual, the link to sign up for the email that would deliver the summary of what we just talked about to you every morning is now in the chat. And thanks, Chris, for joining us. And we're really excited that you'll be back tomorrow. And we will see everybody then.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great Monday.
Thanks.